In this video, we'll discuss trigger conditions in Power Automate, and also we'll discuss logical operators in trigger condition. And we can able to restrict a flow to run on a specific condition that we'll discuss in this video. The trigger conditions are a kind of expressions that determines whether a flow should run or not based on the specific conditions or based on the values from the trigger outputs. So for that, I'm going back to the SharePoint. So in this site, I have created a list name called contract management. So in this list, I have couple of columns. I have title, vendor, vendor ID, cost, something like this. So based on some property value, I can able to restrict a flow to start. So for that, first I'm going back to this make.powerautomate.com. From here, I'm going to create an automated cloud flow. This point of time, I'll take when an item created. Here I'm selecting this one, and I'll give this one as trigger condition flow, and then click create. So once we create, the trigger action will add to the flow. So this is when an item is created. So I'm selecting the site name, site address, and then list is contract management. So as we know, when we create automated cloud flow and when we take when an item created, and this flow will start when an item is created. And initially, if you are not doing anything, whatever the case, this flow will start when a new item created into the contract management list. So I'm going back to this eclipses. When we hit this eclipses, we have an option name called settings. Inside settings, in the bottom, we can able to see a trigger condition option. So trigger condition here specify one or more expression which must be true for the trigger to fire. So this is going to restrict the flow trigger. So for example, if I give any condition, any condition, and that will check if that condition met or if the condition output is true, then only this flow will trigger. So for that, what I'm doing is any trigger condition which starts with a @ symbol. So later you can able to write whatever you want. So here I'm writing not, open parenthesis, empty, and again open parenthesis, I'm writing trigger body. So in this I want to take a field name here. So there is a field name called vendor name. If this is empty, I don't want to run. So for that, I'm just taking the field name, which is a vendor name. So done. I'm closing this square brace. I'm closing this trigger body, and I'm closing this not. So we are done. We have closed this one, and we have closed this one. Click done. So to check this one, I'm going back. I'm just simply adding a variable here, and I'm initializing a variable. I'm taking this one and take this initialize variable, and I'm just giving as a title of the contract. I just want to take this title of the contract, only this title, and here which would be a string, and value I'm taking this from the dynamic content. Now this initialize variable we did, and we are taking the title of it. Now just click on save. Now this flow will save. So once it saves, and we can able to test this one. To test this one, and this is ready, and I'm going to this one. I'm clicking this new. So we are entering the contract name, which is a purchase contract, and vendor name I'm just giving something called Yoto. We'll give some color name like blue, and then vendor ID which is 321, and then cost is something like $59,000, and start date is, this is optional, and then I'm just giving the support name, and then click save. Now this is done, the purchase contract, the vendor name we have given. Now I'll go back to this one, go to my flows, and go to trigger condition flow. Now if you test this one, now you come here, so the vendor name is available, so which is blue, so I'm expecting this flow will start and this will trigger. So it will take a couple of seconds. Meanwhile, we'll create one more entry in this. So I'm creating a new item. Title is which is a graphic is a title, and then vendor name is some red, and then vendor ID I'll giving 234, and cost is something like 10,000, and then assign to, I'm just giving support, and this is not required, and I'm removing this one. So the vendor name is empty now, and I'm selecting the support, and when I click save, so we have created two things, and one is a purchase contract, another one is graphic. So the purchase contract have the vendor name, and the graphic contract does not have any vendor name. So if you go back and refresh this one, in the history of this one, and I'm expecting one should be run and which should be successful, and when I click this one and we just started and ran, and here if you go here, so you can able to see the list name, and if you go to initialize variable, so the value of this contract title is purchase contract. Now this is ran because the vendor name is not empty, so this is not empty and this is successful. And we'll come back to this my flow. You can see this history of this flow, and only one time which has run. So if you refresh and you can check, and which is only runs one time. So the second time it is not triggered. Why it is not triggered? Because of the condition. So we have given if the vendor name is empty, and it should not run. So this is empty and the flow is not triggered. So what we'll do is we'll try to add some logical operators in it. So I want to run a flow if the vendor name is red and which is not empty. So I'll go back to this, and I'm selecting this settings, and here we'll write some logical operator. So here we know we have run this for if the vendor name is empty. I'm taking an AND condition here, and open parenthesis. So and so we can able to pass the conditions inside it with a comma separation. So I'm using AND, and if it is not empty, I'm using a comma. I'll copy this trigger condition here until here. I'm copy this one, and then here I'm writing equals. And then I'm pasting this one equals the trigger body and the vendor name. If the vendor name red only, I want to run this flow, otherwise I don't want to run. So I'm closing this equals, and I'm closing this AND. So I'm writing AND here initially, and I used that symbol and open parenthesis. I'm checking this vendor name is not empty, and the vendor name is equal to red, then only I want to trigger this flow, otherwise I don't want to trigger. So I'm saving this one. I have used AND condition now. Now we don't have any errors here. If you go back and if you try to add the data here, now I'm giving some other entry here. The title is satellite, and then now I'm giving a vendor name as yellow, and which is not empty, but now it is. Now I'm giving yellow. I'm giving vendor ID, and the contract cost I'm giving, and then start date. I'm not giving a start date, and I'm selecting assign to and save it. Now we have added one which is yellow. Now I'm adding one more here. Now here I'm just giving bracket, and now the vendor name is red. So we have to check here. We have given vendor name as red, red. So the same I'm giving here. Now the vendor ID I'm giving like 213, and cost is 23,000, and the start date is maybe 25th, and assign to is support. Now just click save. Now we have two entries here. So one is satellite with the vendor name is yellow, and another one is racket with the vendor name as red. Now we'll go back to this flow. I'm going to my flow, and when I click this one, and it will show the history. Now the history, 4 minutes back the flow ran. Now I'll try to refresh this one. So I'm expecting only one time this flow will run, and another time for the yellow vendor it will not run. Okay, we'll wait for a while. So if you want to check once again, you can able to check this one. In the edit mode, you can come back to this Eclipse, go to settings, and here so we have and, we have not, and then we have equals to, and we have used a vendor name as red. So you can go back to my flows, open the history. So in the history we can able to see two times, and this one is 5 minutes back and this one is 28 seconds back. So when you click this one, you can able to see this title of the contract, which is a racket. If you go back here, so this racket contract have a vendor name as red, and this satellite has yellow. So this for this item, and the flow is not triggered. For this item the flow is triggered. So if you go back to my flows, you can able to see the history recently ran 1 minute back, and that is on this item racket. So this way you can able to write other logical operators also. You can use or you can use less than, less, or you can use greater than. Few of the logical operators were there, and which supports to the trigger condition. You can able to write a condition to limit the trigger. So triggers we can able to see when you try to create a new item. When you try to create a new flow in the automated, you can able to see the SharePoint related one. If I search for SharePoint, you can see when an item created, when a file is created, when a file is created or modified, and when a file is created in the folder. Few of the triggers are available, but still if you want to limit your flow to trigger based on some conditions, you can able to use a trigger condition. Sometimes if you have an issue with the flow, and if your flow is not performing properly, or maybe if your flow is going into an infinite loop, you can use a trigger condition to stop that. So in the upcoming video, we'll see how to overcome the infinite loop in the Power Automate flow.